We are back talking Dat Vedanta, and today's reflection is something that I get enthusiastic to talk about. I try not to use the word excitement. I try not to get excited for things. It's something that we're cautioning against within this philosophy. An excited dog is the kind of dog that runs out in the street and gets hit by a car. So we shouldn't be excited, but we can be inspired and enthusiastic. And today's episode is just one of those things that's so practical, so helpful in your day-to-day that you might find an application for it within 15 minutes of listening to this. And that is what we're told around force. The simple knowledge bomb on this concept is that which is forced is not full of force. So what does this mean? Well, it's similar to it within Eastern philosophy. You have Taoism and the concept of Wu Wei, non-forcing. In Christianity, we have Thy will be done. That is how we're told to pray, even though we largely forget that and we turn God into some cosmic genie that we're asking for things, on a constant basis, instead of praying as Christ told us to pray of Thy will be done. This idea of that which is forced is not forceful. It's really easy to understand in human relationships. Have you ever tried to date someone where you're trying to force it? Each increment of force led to less force within that relationship. Turns out we think you can inject force into whatever we're pursuing. That is largely the romantic philosophy that sadly so many of us live with, whether we know it or not. The romantic philosophy that is a hangover from the Victorian period that now no serious academic philosophers still entertain, but movies, music, books are flush with romantic ideals. A romantic ideal so common that we don't even realize that it is just an idea that we've seen 1,000 times before that makes its way into nearly every pop song, which is, if you want it bad enough, the whole universe is going to conspire to give it to you. The romantic and the rom-com notion of, if I pursue this person hard enough. Or the romantic ideal in some hero movie. If I want it bad enough, I can scale Everest. I can become that billionaire that I just read the memoir where it was just a rags to riches story and just perseverance, desire, overcoming challenge after challenge through sheer determination, completely throwing out that maybe that person didn't even care about the $1 billion by the time they got it because they were so focused on mastering their craft all along the way. That we get attached to the fruits and we pay no attention to the roots of the story. But this is where things really go off the rails. Is when we ingest these romantic ideals, think this is how the world is actually wired. This is how the universe works. We're told that if something isn't happening for you, if it isn't happening yet, it's because you don't want it enough. It's because you're not putting in enough force. But what we are told within this tradition and nearly every major philosophical tradition is that is the exact opposite thing we should be doing. That which is forced is not full of force. So how do you get what you want in this philosophy? We are paradoxically told to detach from any outcome, result. That fruit of your actions is not yours. You want to have a insanely bountiful harvest of fruits everywhere? Detach from thinking any of those fruits are yours. You'll wake up with fruit all around you, fruit that you don't even identify with, that you do not think is yours, but to the outsider, you say, wow, what a crazy amount of abundance. I want that. They apply the Vedantic lens of, okay, let me detach from wanting that because that's the very thing that's going to limit me from getting there. Well, we're told they'll wake up with that same bounty. However, on the other hand, if we apply the romantic, selfish, philosophical approach of, I want that, I'm going to obsessively attach myself to manifesting that fruit, to making it happen. Best case scenario, what you end up with will end up being rotten. Most likely case is it will all evade you until you finally get to a place of non-forcing. The dating game is a perfect example where you're not trying to force that relationship. That allows for it to establish itself on its own, stand on its own 2 feet, flourish because it is this healthy communion between who knows how many forces that make this feel like, oh, this is something that should happen. That detachment from needing it to happen allows it to happen. And not just to happen, but to have healthy roots beneath it, churning up all kinds of fruit. I know in my own life, with my first startup, I worked 7 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day. Ended up with nothing after 6 years of that. Well, I shouldn't say nothing. I ended up with a heart condition, a whole lot of tattered relationships, and maybe a PhD on how not to do it. Fast forward a few years, and now running multiple companies. Amazingly collaborative way, because I'm not trying to control every aspect. I'm not trying to force it. In fact, one of my companies recently hit 20 million in annualized revenue. And yet, in the last 2 months, it's had its fair share of challenges to overcome, as is always the case, but more significant now than in previous months. And I find these words just coming out of my mouth of, well, we'll do all of the hard things the right way, and we'll be able to sleep really well at night because we're doing all of the hard things the right way. And if the universe really wants this company to exist, great. But if it doesn't, that's fine too. There isn't this obsessive need to extract something from the world. There is this conscious act of service of trying to produce something we think people benefit from. And if more and more people benefit from it, they want to pull it out of us, then maybe we'll end up with a company because of this collaboration between us and our coworkers and us and our customers. Not because I forced it, but because since day one, it was kind of the same philosophy of, hey, if this is meant to exist, then I'm going to do everything I can to give it its best shot, but it's largely going to be pulled from us by people that really want what we're making. I have not had a single night of stress with any of these companies, 3 different companies that I've started in recent years, all at the same time. And even in the midst of economic headwinds, global pandemic, massive supply chain shortages all along the way, it's been this very stress-free, almost effortless experience where I feel like I'm this tiny little bit character that planted a few seeds, maybe gave a initial water, made sure that it had enough sunlight, and each one of these has taken on a life of its own. I cannot overstate how pleasant the difference between these two stories is I can't overstate how pleasant, how loving it is to be in a relationship, a marriage 10 years in where we love being with each other more now than we ever have before. Each year it gets better and better to where I'm like, who were those two strangers that first year that we got married, 4 years into knowing each other? With our children, there is this healthy independence and yet mutual love and affection where it is so fun to see them grow up as their own people instead of my kids. Instead of forcing a viewpoint on them around a philosophy like Vedanta, I'm just going to tell them, hey, this is what we believe. But maybe you'll come up with something much better. Maybe you'll find something that's way better than this. That which is forced is not forceful. And if you want to see a tree that is full of fruit in any aspect or all aspects of your life, it is best you reflect on this ancient piece of wisdom. That which is forced is not forceful. We'll see you next time on the Daily Vedantic. Thanks for listening to the Daily Vedantic. This reflection is part of a free repeating 2-year course in Advaita Vedanta. Rooted in the timeless wisdom of the Upanishads, arguably the oldest philosophical texts on earth, you can begin with episode 1, which gives the 15-minute overview of the whole philosophy of Vedanta, or you can join the journey with any episode at any point. But the critical aspect of this course, of understanding and mastering anything, is to study and reflect, even for 10 to 15 minutes on the timeless each day, preferably at the start of your day. As is said in this philosophy, reflection is 100,000 times as powerful as listening. So listen, journal, sit with, discuss these concepts, or ask questions at thedailyvedantic.com with our AI-powered chatbot informed by about 700 episodes here, as regularly as one can if you want to see clarity and peace almost effortlessly unfold in your daily life. And if it doesn't result in a near immediate increase in clarity and peace, then toss aside and feel free to never listen again. One of the things that you might notice is after 7 or 8 days in a row, this doesn't feel like a discipline. This feels like a visit with a best friend to dive into the timeless with daily reflection. Within a few days, it becomes one of your favorite parts of the day. You can also find out more, including news about in-person events in Los Angeles and beyond, at the Daily Vedantic on Instagram or through our weekly newsletter at thedailyvedantic.com. Additionally, check out the links in our show notes for more resources like the books that are mentioned most frequently in the episodes, including Vedanta Treatise, perhaps the simplest and most straightforward read on this philosophy I've ever come across. Until next time, and from the entire team that works on the Daily Vedantic project, thanks for listening.